Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. So I'm continuing on my director retrospective, focusing on Guillermo Del Toro. I'm looking at his third film today, Devil's Backbone. This was a film he wrote when he was, as a thesis film, when he was at film school along with Kronos. And it wasn't until later in his career he got to make this film. This film came out in 2001 and it stars a slew of actors he'd used before, such as Federico Lupi, who he used in Kronos, along with Maria Paradis, who played the wife in Life is Beautiful. And playing Carlos of Fernando Teville. For those who haven't seen this film, it really focuses on Carlos, a 12-year-old boy whose father has died in the Spanish Civil War. He arrives at an ominous boys' orphanage. He discovers the school is haunted and has its many dark secrets which he must uncover. And it really focuses on this kid whose father's died, and he's put into this orphanage and he doesn't really know why he's there or how it just sort of fit in. He ultimately clashes with the bully there, but ultimately they become friends in the end. We get to see this bully and we sort of judge him to begin with, but he's not quite what he seems. There is a bit of heart to him, a bit of depth that we see throughout. We see he's in love with a girl a little bit older than him who works at the orphanage. And he's sort of a very interesting character in that regard. But it's Carlos is the one we mainly focus on, where he starts to try and navigate through his circumstances and where he finds himself. And he ultimately finds a particular ghost that sort of haunts him, and he doesn't know what it wants or why it keeps harassing him. And he's so fearful of it, he doesn't try and find out what it's after. And it's revealed what happened to this kid and who's been involved in it. And that's sort of what the focus of the film is. This film felt very personal, like he's getting back to his roots in many ways. His religious themes, like in many of his films. I noticed there's a mentoring ship going on in his films where there's a lot of characters mentoring each other. And I felt in this Federico Lupi's character, Dr. Casares, was a very interesting character. He has a lot of depth, he's very smart. He's mentoring, young Carlos in many ways and trying to help him, trying to shape him into a good kid, I guess. He really looks up to this man, and it's really this bonding moment between these two characters. Federico Lupi is an actor that Del Toro had a big love for and put him in a variety of his movies, especially his first film, Kronos, and he really wanted to put him in Mimic, but ultimately because his English wasn't perfect, the Weinsteins got involved once again, and ultimately they cast a different actor, but that's who he really wanted to work with. So it's good to see him get back to his roots, and after not having a great experience on Mimic, it's good that he got back to the filmmaking and the stories he really wanted to tell. I like how he personalizes films, especially films like this, where it really feels like he has something to say and you can relate to the characters, and there's a lot of depth to them. They aren't just simply one-dimensional characters. There is a lot of depth to the characters that is revealed throughout his movies, and I really like that. I really like the bond between Federico Lupi's character, Dr. Casares, and Marisa Paradis. It's Carmen. They're sort of married, the husband and wife, but they've sort of lost the spark of romance, ultimately. They care for one another, but they're just not as intimate as they want to be, I guess. What I really love about the Carmen character is she's like the teacher, the headmistress of this particular orphanage, and looks after the kids and teaches them and tries to point them in the right direction. She's missing one leg. We don't really find out why she's missing a leg, but I really like that. It added something interesting to her character because she had this fake leg that was made over interesting bits and pieces. And she had this particular limp, so it shows she'd been through a lot. And there is one scene where she talks about how she hates having the leg, but it helps her stand upright and move and be able to live her life the way she wants. I like it sort of focusing on this orphanage and that there's a Spanish war happening in the background that we learn little bits and pieces about, but it's not really the main focus. The main focus is these group of kids. And it feels like Lord of the Flies in a lot of ways. These group of kids band together and ultimately have to defend themselves later in the film. After a particular thing takes place, it really looks at how they do bond together, and they're all unique and different. There's one character called Al who doesn't speak. You've got the bully character, you've got a variety of others that really work well with the story they're telling. And it sort of is a ghost story in many ways. It isn't focused on the ghost stuff, but the ghost stuff does take place within the film and serves an important purpose to what's going on. And we hear a voiceover at the start of Dr. Casadas telling his story. And I kind of like where they go with him as well, and I found that kind of interesting. What fascinated me about this was the kids and who they were and the life that they had to live now since their parents had passed away, and the impact that has on kids losing their parents at a young age. And it shapes them in many ways. And there are a variety of characters, older characters in it, who have been shaped and scarred by the fact that their parents have passed away or been killed, and they don't really know how to live in the world normally. There's a lot of heart to this film, and the Carlos character is one we can get behind and we really feel for. And when he's tricked by the bully to go and get water, and he's harassed by the ghost, and when he's pushed around by an older kid there, you really feel for him and you can get behind the character. And he makes decisions along the way that you really feel for him. And when the bully and him are sort of caught doing something, he doesn't throw the bully in, he takes the complete blame himself, which I really liked. He shows that he's a stand-up guy and that he ultimately becomes part of this group of kids. The title Devil's Backbone comes from the idea that kids are born with deformities, or that their spines are showing on the outside. And I thought that was kind of interesting, that it's this perception of things, this idea of things. And that's what the whole film's really, really like, is a perception of how people see the world and what they want to see and what they want to be part of and the lives they want to live. And trying to navigate through being in a hostile environment or in a scary environment that's new to that person, that they don't know how to navigate through it. I like that Carmen and Dr. Casadas are ultimately funding the civil war on their side, trying to give them pieces of gold in order to them to buy weapons and to defend themselves. Sort of themes and ideas you would use later in Pan's Labyrinth, and I really like that. Sort of a precursor to that. It's a very different film, of course, but it's sort of dealing with that sort of Spanish War element that he used in this film. Once again, this has some really great sort of creature design, I would call it, even though it's sort of a ghost, in its look and its feel. And you can tell it's a real kid, but it's sort of see-through. You can see through it, and there's sort of stuff on top of it, and I really like that. It's beautifully shot. It has a real sense of suspense, but drama as well, and it's really well executed in this particular film. Clearly the film's shot in Spain or Mexico, and it just looks beautiful. It looks like it could be an American, outback country sort of look. There's a blue sky and there's, yellow fields and a dirt road, and they're in the middle of nowhere, and it just looks really great in that regard. I think all the acting's sold, the young kids all do a great job, and the older actors are really fantastic to watch. It's sort of a captivating film in many ways, and there's things that are revealed throughout it. Motives for particular characters, why they're doing what they're doing, and what they really want to accomplish that we don't really know until later in the film. And I really like that. It's sort of introducing stuff and then revealing these characters and showing that, like I said, they weren't one-dimensional characters. There's a lot of depth to them. You can see into them, and they're realistic human beings. And this is a theme that he uses a lot in his movie, making characters seem very real, and characters and things that you're meant to be fearful of are actually not the things that are the scariest. Once again, it's the human beings, and that sort of is encompassed in this film. It looks at that once again, that the real monsters are not creatures or ghosts, but what people do to each other, and human beings can be really, nasty and quite scary in what they're trying to accomplish. This has a real violent ending that involves the kids attacking this particular man who's responsible for a lot of things, and it felt very real and very violent, but it served a purpose to the story, and I kind of liked it. And this is a scene that really felt like Lord of the Flies. Like, these characters, young kids, had to form their own weapons, they had to defend themselves now, there's no one there to protect or help them, and they had to take it upon themselves to do this, and I really loved that. I thought that was a really great aspect to this film. This film was really a labour of love for Del Toro. It was 16 years in the making. It was like, I think he really wanted to make this after he made Kronos, but it didn't sort of happen. And he made the choice between Kronos and this, and he chose Kronos to be his first film and this later in his career. And I really liked that. He's a very interesting, unique director who has clear vision, has a great storytelling ability, and is able to craft really interesting and fascinating worlds. It's based on personal experience that he puts into his film. And that's what makes it effective. And these smaller films that he does, the ones rooted more in who he is as a filmmaker and as a person, and they feel like the ones he really wants to convey so much in. He's also quoted as saying this is his favourite film that he's made. This is another example of a personal film that he's made. Del Toro is a creative force and unique and original in his concept and his ideas. I like the films he makes, I like the ideas that he has, he touches on good and evil, he touches on religion and spirituality, he touches on how the people we think are the bad guys aren't always the bad guys. And the human beings are really the scary creatures, not the creatures themselves. And I really love that. I think he's so effective in his filmmaking. If you haven't seen this film, I do highly recommend it. It is brilliant. And there are visual effects in it that just enhance what's happening there. There is realistic elements to it, which I liked. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoying this Director Retrospective Series. I hope to do more of these videos. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.